An overview. Author Vladimir Nabokov. Year published 1962. Type novel genre fiction.
Pale Fire consists of a long poem by a fictional poet, John Shade, and a foreword, commentary, and index by the narrator, Charles Kinbote. Tense. Most of the novel Pale Fire is told in past tense, but parts of the poem are in present tense, and Kinbote remarks on his situation in the present tense. About the title. The title Pale Fire comes from a play by English playwright William Shakespeare. Timon of Athens 160508. The moon's an errant thief, and her pale fire she snatches from the sun. The lines refer to the fact the moon emits no light of its own, only the glow of the sun. Similarly, commentator Charles Kinbote borrows the reflected glory of the poet John Shade. However, the relationship is sometimes reversed, since the novel's compelling narrative of an assassination appears in Kinbote's commentary. Character analysis. Kinbote. Kinbote, a skilled translator of Shakespeare's Zemplin work, is attentive to wordplay and poetic rhythm. However, he is often oblivious to other people's opinions and disliked in town and the university. He considers Shade a dear friend, but fails to realize his avoidance. He blames any reluctance of Shade's on his wife. Sybil Kinbote enjoys a steady stream of young male lovers, although he is sometimes disappointed by them. He is also petty and snobbish. He sometimes imagines he has delivered a crushing insult, though usually its meaning is too obscure to hit the mark. King Charles is an aesthete who enjoys the beauty of mountain hikes, theater, and poetry. He has loved men ever since he was attracted to his best friend Oleg, Duke of Rahl, as a king. It is Charles's duty to produce an heir, but although he loves his wife Disa, he cannot bring himself to consummate their marriage. Shade is an unattractive man with a misshapen body, a gray mop of abundant hair, and bags under his lusterless eyes. He enjoys some fame as a poet, and he also teaches in the English department at Wordsmith College. Shade is curious about the afterlife, especially after the death of his daughter, Hazel, in 1957. However, Shade is an atheist. He loves his wife deeply and he mourns his daughter. He tolerates his neighbor, Kinbote, rather than truly liking him. Gradus is a man of action with a dull intellect. He studied pharmacology in Zurich and later became an itinerant wine taster. Later, he engaged in petty subversive activities and joined the revolutionary extremist party in Zembla. Gradus. As a member of the Shadows, Gradus is chosen to assassinate the exiled King Charles. Gradus lacks curiosity and sophistication. He is satisfied with reading informational inserts in drug packages rather than seeking out more challenging literature. He had a wife, and later he had an affair with his mother-in-law, but ultimately he seems to dislike sex, and he tried to castrate himself too. Be rid of sexual urges. Plot summary. Forward. A former professor at Wordsmith College, Charles Kinbote, introduces the poem Pale Fire. He writes from the fictional town of Cedern in the fictional American state of Utah. Kinbote and the poet John Shade were once neighbors in New Y, Appalachia, USA, but Shade was killed a few months before the writing of the foreword. Kinbote tells readers he interviewed Shade's killer in jail. He describes his friendship with Shade, although Shade seems not to have reciprocated his feelings. Kinbote invites readers to start by reading his extensive commentary first, before turning to the poem Pale Fire, a poem in 4 cantos. In Canto 1. The poet John Shade describes his brushes with mortality, which made him into the poet he is. He saw a waxwing bird slain by running into a plate glass window, perhaps when he was still a boy. His childhood was also marked by a series of fits or seizures, which suddenly resolved themselves In Canto 2, the poet describes his ideas about life after death. He also recounts the life and death of his daughter, Hazel, she was Anne, awkward girl who unfortunately inherited Shade's looks one winter. Night in 1957, Hazel mysteriously drowned in a lake. It is unclear whether she got lost in the snow or intentionally killed herself. In Canto 3, Shade describes his experiences as a lecturer for the Institute of Preparation for the Hereafter. Shade pronounces the acronym IPH like the word if, signifying uncertainty about the afterlife. Although he is interested in questions about life after death, Shade is an atheist. He describes a near-death experience during which his heart stopped and he saw a vision of a white fountain. He reads of a woman, a Mrs. Z, who also saw such a fountain in a near-death experience. He meets with her, but their conversation is unsatisfactory. Later, he learns the word fountain was a misprint in the article. She actually claimed to have seen a white mountain. In Canto 4, Shade discusses poetry writing and his standing as a poet. He has an idea. Man's life as commentary to abstruse, unfinished poem he saves the idea for. Further use, Canto 4 ends unfinished. The final rhyming couplet is missing its second half. The line to rhyme with lane in line 999. Commentary. In commenting on the poem, Kinbote gives many details about the distant northern land of Zembla. Gradually, it becomes clear. Kinbote Izor believes himself to be the exiled king of Zembla. Charles Xavier Vseslav, also known as Charles II or Charles the Beloved. Kinbote tells the story of Charles's escape from Zembla. A revolution broke out, led by the extremists. Charles was placed under house arrest in his palace and was soon confined to a lumber room to keep him from sending messages from the window. However, he discovered a secret passageway leading from the lumber room to a theater outside the palace grounds. With the help of his friend Odin, an extremist but also loyal to the king, Charles escapes Zembla. He climbs over the Bara Range to Blauwick, a coastal city of Zembla. There, a motorboat waits for him in a cave. He makes his way to the French Riviera, and there Tiazena, United States. He arrives. Parachute at the estate of a friend, Sylvia O'Donnell, Odin's mother. Sylvia arranges for Charles now, using the pseudonym Kinbote to teach at Wordsmith College in New. Why, Kinbote rents a house from Judge Goldsworth, next door to Kinbote's favorite American poet. In spring and early summer, Kinbote tells John Shade the story of the last king of Zembla. Kinbote believes he is furnishing Shade with material for a poem and is excited when he learns Shade is writing a poem. Meanwhile, Jakob Gradus, member of an extremist group called the Shadows, is chosen to assassinate the king. He makes his way from Zembla to Paris, to the French Riviera, to New York, and finally to New Y. On July 21st, Shade tells Kinbote he has nearly finished the poem. Kinbote invites Shade over to celebrate. Shade accepts, bringing his manuscript and envelope full of index cards. Outside Kinbote's house, they are accosted by a stranger. Kinbote believes it is Gradus, the assassin. Later, the man says he is Jack Gray, an escapee from a lunatic asylum in New Y. Gray fires a gun, Kinbote believes. Gray is aiming at him, but the bullet strikes Shade and kills him. Kinbote spirits the manuscript away. He reads the poem that night and discovers it says nothing about Zembla. He rereads it and claims there are subtle hints about Zembla, which only he can tease out. He gets a promise from Shade's widow, Sybil, to allow him to be the sole editor of Shade's final poem. This later arouses consternation from the wordsmith faculty. Kinbote has several interviews with the imprisoned Gray, who then kills himself. Kinbote flees to the mountain town of Cedern to write the commentary to Shade's poem.